our funder and friend at the DC Commission on Arts and Humanities. This is the first of 3 forecasting conversations we will hold. And the collaborative is pretty excited about these particular community conversations. There's been a lot going on. We've had to make a lot of shifts and pivots in our work as a community, and certainly as the collaborative as well. Before we get started, I just wanted to share a couple of things for you. A reminder that these conversations will be recorded and logged in, so if you need to go back to them or want to pass them along to colleagues, you will be able to. And we have a couple of important announcements to share. Firstly, tomorrow is the DC Collaborative membership meeting. Am I getting the date right? Oh my goodness, it's July. Yes, that's right. Okay, Wednesday, again, is the DC, sorry, yes, I got it right, okay. Sorry guys, there are a lot of events I need to make sure I am set here. Okay, DC Collaborative membership conversation. It will be from 3 to 4 p.m. Our special guest is Council Member David Grasso. He'll be sharing some important updates in his capacity on the Committee on Education for DC Council. We will also be sharing with you all some DC Collaborative updates, including our anti-racism action plan and next steps, how we move forward as a DC Collaborative, as well as a community of practice. So please, please join us for this very important membership convening, and you'll get to hear from Councilmember Grasso, and you'll even get to ask questions. We've reserved about a half hour for that part of the meeting. So please be sure to RSVP so we can invite you into the space. Also, a couple of other important announcements to share with you all. We are launching our member map tomorrow, and that is something that's very important because it's about collecting data. And data is so very important to our work now more than ever before. In fact, I have a really exciting announcement to share with you. The DC Collaborative has been awarded a second collective impact grant from the National Endowment for the Arts. And this is really significant. This is a second $100,000 matchable grant that will help us and support our community's collective impact work. And this second grant is specific around our data, visualizing our data, collecting our data, being able to identify opportunity gaps, and how we move together collectively as a community in support of students in DCPS. So really tremendous news. We're very excited. So please be on the lookout for the member map information that we will need from you. The deadlines will be included in there. Also, this Thursday, another important announcement is the Arts and Humanities for Every Student, known as OFFICE, program applications for fall will be launching on Thursday. And for those of you that have participated in this, as you know, we collect your information of the programs that you are planning, and we have some very specific questions around what your organization's plans are around diversity, equity, inclusion in supporting and welcoming students to your programs, whether they're virtual or in person. So that is launching on Thursday, so please be on the lookout for that as well, and the deadline information will be attached too. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our partner in co-presenting these fall forecast conversations from the Commission, Mr. David Markey.
Hello, everyone. It is so great to see everybody. Oh my gosh. We've all been sequestered in our various living rooms and kitchens and so on. So it is really wonderful to see everybody. Congratulations, Lissa, on the second NEA award. I think that's a real sort of imprimatur from the NEA, just on the as to the value of the work that you do for the community, with and for the community. I'll be brief. This is the Mary Lambert and DCPS Arts Team show. But one of the reasons we wanted to have these conversations is so much is still uncertain in our world. And it would be all too easy to say, oh, let's put arts education on hiatus for next year because we don't know what the world is going to look like in the months to come. But we really do not want to disenfranchise young people at a time when the arts can be so valuable to them in processing everything that's happening in their world and bringing them joy in sometimes, what can seem like a joyless world. It's really important that we are intentional and that we work together in order to ensure that young people have these arts opportunities available to them. So that was sort of the motivation behind this. We want, I know many of you are on the phone who are eligible, who are from organizations who are eligible to apply to the Arts and Humanities Education Project grants. That grant is currently open. It will close on Friday, July 2nd. And so we really wanted you to have the opportunity to hear from folks in the school system, both in, in school programming and folks who work in the out of school time arena, to really hear from them what they anticipate as what will be possible in the fall and moving into the next academic year, and also how you can best position yourself for both a successful grant application and just a successful rollout of a program. And so that was the motivation behind it. As I said, many of you on the call are probably eligible for the Arts Education Project grant. I know there are several people on the call who are also teaching artists, and I think they too, as independent contractors or folks working with arts organizations, it will be really helpful or valuable to them to hear what Mary and her team have to share today. So thank you for being here. Also, those of you who are teaching artists, our fellowship grant is also open. That was scheduled to close on July 2nd, but we were giving you an extension, a week extra to work in your application. So please consider submitting an application to the fellowship grant. There is a teaching artist cohort. So I hope to see applications there. So thank you again for taking the time to be here. I know everybody is probably Zoom Beat out or WebEx out or Google Meet out. So thanks for being here. And I will turn it back over to Lisa.
Thanks, David. And thanks again for sharing some announcements and deadlines that are upcoming for commission grants. I know there may still be a couple of workshops, and certainly if you have questions, reach out to David and team. We are especially appreciative that there are more opportunities for more organizations to be eligible and teaching artists to be eligible to apply for arts education grants this year. So thank you so much for that opportunity on behalf of the whole community. So now, without further ado, let's talk about what we're here for today, and that is the fall forecast and what is shaping up for DCPS Arts, and how we are all going to be able to help support that work through our programming and making sure that we are curricularly connected. Oh, I just got a pop-up message. Sorry, there is an arts education workshop at the Commission tomorrow at 10 a.m. If you have any questions about that or interested, just put a message in the chat about that. Okay, super. Thanks, David. Okay, so Mary, I hand the mic to you now.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, David. Good afternoon, everyone. Tracy, I need to make sure, am I running the PowerPoint or are you? I can do it.
I thought you were. Yeah, I think you were. I also can't unmute myself because I have a screen.
Understandable. Thank you. All right, bear with me for a moment while I launch mine. One moment, everyone. Let's see. All right, can everyone see it?
Yes.
Great, thank you. It's thinking, one moment. All right. So here on the call today, I'm Mary Lambert. I'm the Director of Arts team at DC Public Schools. And then we have James Materitano, who's also on the call with us today. He is one of our music managers. Here is our cute little team. So James, myself, Lindsay is a visual arts manager, and Katie is a music manager as well. I am going to thread throughout this PowerPoint some of our student work that was put on our DCPS showcase page at the end of the school year, just to highlight some of what the wonderful work our students are doing. This one is from a student at School Without Walls. So I'm going to start off with some assumptions for the fall. So we don't have a lot of answers, and I apologize in advance. I know everybody is ready to know exactly what's going to happen on August 31st. That's one of the few answers we have, is that school starts August 31st. We are assuming a hybrid approach, and there are a few options to that hybrid approach, and it's going to be decided on the family surveys, the teacher and staff surveys, and then also just looking at logistics of what the school, how the school can run. The hybrid would look like a variety of options. It could be 1 day at school, 1 day at home, 1 day at school, 1 day at home, like that. It could be 2 days at school, 2 days at home during virtual learning. It could be 1 week at school, 1 week at home, back and forth. It could be 2 weeks at school, 2 weeks at home. And it has to be flexible in nature, because if anything were to happen and maybe one school has to go fully virtual, or all of the schools have to go fully virtual, we have to be ready and prepared for that. And that could happen at a day's notice, similar to March 16th. We had just a couple of days notice before we knew that the schools were all closing. Some of the guidelines that OSSI has already put out is that classes can be of no more than 6 students for pre-K to K and 10 students for 1 to 12, only 2 adults in that class as well. And that's an important factor, I know, for all of you. Rotating teachers rather than students where possible. So we want to reduce the amount of time that the students are in the hallway. So as much as possible, students are even going to have their lunch in their classroom. And that really affects the art, music, health, PE, world language teachers that normally have their own classroom, and students rotate to that one classroom. Instead, it'll be much more of an art on the cart, music on the cart style. That, of course, could change, but that is the mindset as of right now. Social distancing and wearing masks, canceling activities and events such as field trips, student assemblies, athletic events or practices, special performances, school-wide parent meetings, and that is per the OSSI guidelines, not the DCPS guidelines. But we do obviously create everything that we do based on those guidelines. Limiting non-essential visitors, prohibit outside visitors from entering the school unless their presence was requested or if they have received permission to enter the school. So that's definitely important when thinking about teaching artists coming physically into the school. And we will post the OSSI guidelines in the chat. James, would you mind helping me out with that? All right, I'm sure you all will have questions based on that. We'll definitely get to those at the end. So please bear with us, because I might have some answers embedded in here as well. So here's another beautiful little artwork from one of our students at Oyster. So the teacher survey from our distance learning, so the last 10 weeks of school, we found out 4 major points. They really needed content support. We are addressing that through moving forward in the fall. We are going to digitize all of our units of curriculum to the Canvas website. And it will be formatted in a set where basically the teachers will have a toolbox of several supports added into their unit, whether it's just discussion questions that we develop on our team, or whether it is virtual field trips through a partner like yourselves, or a technique video that we've embedded into the unit. Those sorts of things will all be put out there as like a toolbox for the teachers. And they will develop their virtual / in-person school time based on that toolbox. Support serving students with special needs. That's definitely a big need that we have had addressed by teachers to us as well, and something that we struggle with, because a lot of that does fall on the teacher and how can they support a student when it's all through the computer. So we're coming up with best supports for that for them. Ensuring equity in access. So that's big, definitely when it comes to the digital needs, as well as for our students, their instruments and their art supplies. We overwhelmingly heard from our teachers that art supplies and instruments were not available at home. Even from the students that have the ability to purchase it, they just didn't have it at home. And so then supporting the parents and knowing what do they need to buy for their students. And then on the flip side of that, from the students who really just don't even have pencils and paper at home because that's not something that their family can spend money on. All right. So then the DCPS commitment to hybrid learning is based on these 4 points. Equity forward, seed strong. So seed strong is a social emotional learning point. We know that our students are having some really big hurdles right now, bigger than their little bodies should probably handle. And so we want to make sure that our teachers are able to help them work through some of these issues, but also knowing that our teachers are not therapists. So finding what are those seed strong protocols or units that we can support in what the students are not only doing at school, but then at home as well. Excellence driven. We want to make sure that the work is still leading students to the goals that we would initially have put out for a traditional in-school year. So we are not making the work easier, we're just making it more accessible. And then authentic. When we think of virtual learning, you know, we all get burnt out on these Zoom, Google Teams calls all day. And for the students, it's really hard. So how do we make sure that we are able to engage them in a way that is new and fresh and makes them want to be a part of this work? So those are the 4 guiding principles that we create our work around. Here's another student work from School Without Walls. So you might be hearing my children in the background. It's nap time. So if there's some yelling happening in the background on my end, that's what that is. Framework for arts learning is what we create all of our units and what we want our teachers to focus with what they're doing in their classroom. So the frameworks for learning, if you haven't already seen this, is the 6 arcs of theme that we want our students to engage in. And those are all across the top: identity, interaction, language, determination, creation, and transformation. Those are all the high school level of those themes as well, the abstract version of it. But we break it down by age appropriateness. So identity is always the easy one to look at. We start with the little guys with looking at family, and that's really the broad sense of what family is. Moving into community, becoming, self, and then the more abstract identity. This is our arts framework for learning descriptions. I will put in the chat box once we're done here the link to all of these documents as well, so that you can have these for yourself to be able to see and review. And as you're creating your grant proposals, you will want to definitely at minimum look at the identity, or I'm sorry, at the thematic arcs and see where your work could combine. But then also we have a broken down curriculum map for you where you can look at specific age range or grade range units to decide if your work would match well to be included into our curriculum units for teachers to offer. It's a plate portrait. I believe this was from Barnard. It doesn't say it on there, but I'm pretty sure that was Barnard. So this is that curriculum connections document that I mentioned to you. This document shows where we break it up by grade band and then content. There is visual arts, music, and performing arts embedded in this. Anything that's written in red is one of our cornerstones. If you haven't heard of our cornerstones before, they are the units where we highlight them as the units that we want our teachers to go to first. So if a teacher's only going to see the students for, say, one advisory, 9 weeks, what are the units that we want them to go to first to make sure that the students are getting all of the core techniques and themes and concepts available to the students at all times. So then that breaks it into the theme of what the unit is about, the techniques. So if you have, say, a technique video on how to do screen printing, then you could look through here and find which of the units have screen printing available, and it could be a nice match for that unit. And then there's also the final product of what the students are building towards. So some considerations that we would like to encourage based on thinking through the ideas of the grants, what our students need, what our teachers need. I wanted to highlight for you with supplies. Keep in mind that most of our students do not have supplies at home. So working with the teachers to know what they do have and then what you need to supplement. And I would really, if thinking that the grant is due July 2nd, I would go based on the assumption that students do not have supplies at all. So even thinking of pencils and paper, what can you offer to help support? And then also keeping in mind that supply kits are really the way to go, at least for this school year. We don't want students sharing, per the OSCE guideline, they shouldn't be sharing as well. And so even if you could get into the school to be a traditional teaching artist setup, you would have to disinfect everything in between classes. So thinking of supply kits for that too, because if you're offering it to more than one class at a time, there's that quick turnaround between classes where you have to have the supplies ready. And then based on our experience of what's been happening the last few months, quotes that I got 2 months ago for supplies have now almost doubled in cost. So whether it's supply and demand, what have you, a lot of the companies are adding significant uptick in their charges. So keep that in mind, that that those costs are higher. Same with shipping, and shipping time is significantly longer. A lot of the companies are selling out quickly because of all of the schools going with this mindset, where we're going to supply kits for color pencils and paper and pen and crayons to the students. So a lot of those high need items are going pretty quick and are harder to buy in bulk. And then the other concept too within this is the flexibility. So as I mentioned before, our class style could change on a dime. So making sure that anything that you are planning or creating can flex between in-person to virtual with little demand on your side. So even if you know you're going to be able to be in person, that you've worked with this one school and they've already allowed you to be that guest person that can come in for the days that you're going to be a teaching artist or support, know that that could change. And so you may want to have some of what you're going to offer pre-recorded and available so that it is not a missed experience, or that you don't have to then suddenly record it to make up for that time. Also, it provides the supports that if you're going into a class and it's maybe only a third of the class that you'll be able to see that day, and you're going to come back for the rest of the kids. So if you think 10 kids in a class per day, that same class is meeting 3 more times, 2 to 3 more times just for that class to get all of the students in. So if you can't attend every single one, then you need to have a recording so that every student in that one class can see what you have or what you're offering. When it comes to recordings, if it's not a live interactive experience, we are suggesting anywhere between 5 and 15 minutes. For students, that really is sort of the limit of what they can engage mentally for in one set time period. If you're going to do a live virtual experience, like a virtual field trip or a performance and critique, any of those types of ideas, that can be longer. About 45 minutes is the suggested length in that. But also keeping in mind that as if you were in the classroom, you really want to make that into sections. So maybe that you're watching for a while and then talking and then doing an activity as you would in the classroom to keep engagement. Some questions based on what many of you put into the request to Tracy and Lissa. I got through some of them, and I think a few were put in just today, so I can go back to that spreadsheet and see what I can answer. But some of the common questions from that we do have answers for. When will DCPS need the partner supports for units? There is not a set date. I would say that August 31st would be the late goal. Early goal would be end of July. August 1st would be probably my ideal. I don't want to put that as a firm goal though, because if that doesn't fit within your work streams and you need August to create, then that is fine. We can always add it in as a last part before school starts. And really, even after August 31st, we can always add it back in. It would just mainly be that, you know, the sooner you can get it to us, the easier it is for us to put up as well. Will the live experience facilitators need a background check? Yes. So if you're creating a virtual field trip, if you're going to do a performance, if you're going to have just a discussion talk with the students and it is live where the students are on at the same time as you, you do need a background check, just like you would if you're going into the school or into the classroom. Does it have to be on Microsoft Teams? So if you do a virtual field trip or a live teaching artist moment, it will be set up as if the teacher will set up the Microsoft Teams event. You can always have any pre-recorded information from Zoom or other platforms embedded, and you would screen share as I'm screen sharing now. However, it will be on Microsoft Teams. And so the student engagement will be based on the teacher's needs and preferences. So there are two types of ways that teams can interact in a meeting setup, where it can be a live meeting, similar to what we're doing right now, where you can take yourself off mute and talk, and you can also chat. Or there's the Microsoft Teams live events, where only the facilitator has control of the screen and the chat. And so no one can talk unless the facilitator allows them. And then everything is put through a Q&A or a chat format. And so that will really be up to the teacher on which version of those that they offer. I think a lot of that will be based on the class, the age, a lot of factors. If we have an encrypted Zoom account, can we host virtual field trips on the platform and add our units in as class support? So this is related to the previous question. It would have to be hosted by the teacher on Microsoft Teams. But again, if you have anything recorded from other accounts, that can be added in, but it wouldn't be hosted on Zoom. What are the best times to offer live events? It's going to be similar to the class structure. If it is for virtual only needs, I would suggest based on age, that could change. So little guys do better in the morning, big kids do better in the afternoon. So to clarify, if we are at a point where you're offering something only to the students who are at home virtually interacting with the unit, then really like 6th grade and under should probably be in the morning, and then 7th grade to 12th grade should be afternoon. If it is going to be offered at a time when the kids are actually in school, in the in-person time, it'll just be during the class time. So that could change multiple times during a day. Some questions we're working on currently to get answers. Does DCPS have guidelines in place to ensure student security for virtual learning? Yes, because we're using Teams and we are controlling it that way. But will you be able to see student video and allow them to unmute themselves to speak? That's related to what I just mentioned, that will really be up to the teacher. As far as being able to see the student, probably not, but as far as hearing them talk, that will probably be allowed. Most teachers at this point are not doing having the student videos on for a variety of reasons. It's mostly just allowing them to have the sound on. Any word on school teaching artists being allowed? There's not. There will be a protocol put out at some point along with really official word on external field trips. But at this point, it's just going on more of the assumption that if we're trying to limit the number of people in the building and limit the amount that students are moving around, then we can work off the idea that it's unlikely that teaching artists will be allowed physically in the building. Same with this last question, how will external field trips be handled through the school year? It is very unlikely that field trips will be offered as an external option for at least the first semester. Going into second semester, that hopefully will change. So going into first semester, it is pretty sure that it's going to be a virtual version only. Will in-school performances be allowed? There's, again, not a definite answer on that, but not likely. Just simply for trying to keep the social distancing, it is not likely that school performances will be allowed. And we have one final little treat for you here. Hopefully it'll play. Oops, I think I double-clicked it.
hope you can recognize it. I'll show you how to play it by saying the jar number. So I'll tell you which jar I'm hitting as I play it, and you guys can play along at home. Where the science comes in. You use your metal spoon, and then when you tap the jar, sound waves travel through the water and create vibrations. The more water, the slower the vibrations and the lower the sound. The jar with the least amount of water has the highest sound because the vibrations of the water is a lot faster. That's the science behind it, boys and girls. Now we're ready to play. Let's see if you can guess the song that we're learning today, boys and girls. Any guesses? If you guessed Baby Shark, you got it right. Now, for Baby Shark, you're going to need jar 1.
All right. So that was one of our videos that we offered through DCTV and DCPS YouTube channel. That's one of our wonderful music teachers, and just little clips pieced together of the unit she offered up on how to play music at home. And I wanted to show that as just really a reference point of thinking, what can you create for our students and what would be engaging, even if it is looking at a technique-based video. And that was one of our more popular ones too. So I haven't looked at chat yet. Are there several questions in here already? I bet.
Let's see, just can the collaborative share this PowerPoint with all in the webinar? Yes, absolutely, we can do that.
And I will get the curriculum links in there real quick too for everybody.
Yeah. Mary, can you give, can your team provide a sense of what may make an evergreen supply kit for a student, so that, this comes from David, so that applicants can look to build some of the costs for those supplies into their grant budgets?
I'm sorry, by an evergreen supply kit, what does that mean?
So thanks, Mary. Thanks, Lisa. That was great, by the way. I really enjoyed it. So something that would be sort of maybe a basic supply kit that would last beyond even one teaching artist's residency, and that the students could go on to use, with their visual arts teacher or music teacher.
Certainly. So I would, as I mentioned, thinking of the mindset that they probably have nothing at home. We're often surprised at even the students that go to the Janies of the district, that those parents won't have construction paper or color pencils. And so whether it is including the absolute basics for the students need it because their parents can't buy it for them, or having a kit that maybe is of more advanced materials, but then a list of supplies that the parents or the teacher need to supply for. So if you want to do, say, a sculpture project, and that you want the students to be able to work with Sculpey and to have certain tools, but the budget's not going to allow you to get everything that you want for the kids based on the number of kids that you have to purchase through the grant, then you might want to think of what are some of the things that would be acceptable or logical that you could ask the parents to provide. Like, could they provide a fork that can make texture in the Sculpey, or like a little plastic knife that they can, from takeout food that they can use to cut the Sculpey. Those kinds of things I would just make sure that you really think through when you're creating those lists. I wouldn't make any assumptions that they have anything.
Yeah, thank you. And to add on to that, a question from Jennifer Barnes Elliott with regards to these supply kits. How do you anticipate distributing them to the students? Will it be through the schools, the org shipping them directly? How would that work?
It could go either way, and I think that could fall on the organization that you're buying it, as well as the teacher's willingness to work on. So I can give an example. when we got a really great grant from Mr. Holland's Opus for some keyboards for our students during this whole distance learning thing, Casio was willing to send them to the 200 individual students, and they normally would not have done that. But they were so desperate for any purchases being made from them that they were willing to send them to individual students instead of just sending the 200 bulk to our warehouse and then making us distribute it. That's not the norm at all. So that's why I say, like, the distributor side of it is a factor. It would probably be best if you go through the teacher, because there are, like, the FERPA rules as well, where we can't give you the addresses, only the teacher can get the addresses for the students to give to you. So they've gone through the parents to do that. So it's probably easiest if we know that all of the students are going to be in school, that the kids receive the kits while they're in school. However, that is a bit of an unknown, because we may go back in August 31st and have far less students in school than we anticipate. Or it could be all the students are there. It's very much an unknown at this point how that will look and how the parents are feeling. Because, I mean, as a DCPS parent myself, I felt very strictly a month ago, my child will not go back to school in the fall. And now I'm kind of like, well, I'm kind of ready for him to be at the house. So, the parent mindset on whether they're going to be in school or not could change. Some schools may see a full enrollment, and others may see drastic decline based on this too.
Mary, may I ask, this is David again, may I ask a question about, I know there are a lot of organizations and companies that have sort of back to school programs. So it's a back to school backpack or folder or supplies. Is there, if we could get our hands on art supplies or music supplies, might there be a way of piggybacking onto, I mean, is DCPS planning on, I guess I don't know a lot about those back to school drives, but might there be a way of the arts community sort of piggybacking onto what might already be in place by DCPS and general supplies to young people?
We're on the same wavelength as you right now. I have a meeting later today to plan that out with the partnership group, because that is the most logical, right? That every student gets a backpack with all the supplies they need for in-home and at school, and they just carry it with them. It's set, it's ready to go. We are looking into how, say, the Ed Fund can support that, other donations from the community. Historically, when we've done the backpack drives, it's been done through community forums. So a church will decide that they want to support one school, and they buy all the backpacks and put them together and also distribute them to the schools themselves. And so DCPS is very hands-off within that, other than, just offering up the principal's connection in that. So this will actually be the first time in recent history that DCPS is even looking into doing a more mass backpack drive like that. A lot of it will come down to funding.
Thanks, Mary. We can have an offline conversation about that.
Oh, great.
I see there are, actually, I just wanted to, continuing on the supplies, let's see, Joanna mentioned thinking creatively and resourcefully about non-consumable items, right? Also in planning for programming and content, things that could be more sustainable and equitable and accessible. A lot of questions have come up here about the background check requirement and how this has changed from previous expectations on field trips. So just so it's clear, and thank you, James, also for responding in the chat, but just if you guys could just reiterate this process and what it looks like for virtual and how one would set up that in-person checking, knowing that it's not done by the institution, if you're working with an institution.
Sure. And James has done a lot of work on this as well, so I might need you to pop in on this, James. But really the mindset moving forward is that if you are going to interact with our students at all, you should have a background check. In the past, we thought, oh, if it's just once, that's no big deal. If the teacher's there, maybe we can let it fly. At this point, it really is, if you are going to interact with our students either virtually or in person in any format for any amount of time, you should have a background check. James, do you want to add too?
No, that about covers it.
Yeah.
They're particularly covering themselves with any access that a teaching artist or a partner may have with a student, whether it be at a school or even in in a room at a partner or museum or something like that. So I did see Caitlin's point to when students do take a trip to a cultural site, and so I'm going to raise that to the team and find out a little bit more clarity on that if that's if that has changed with the virtual learning.
Yeah. And the process itself, how long does that take? How much time do we need to factor in if we all have to do this?
A background check typically takes, Mary, you may also have a better understanding of this, but I believe that it is a quicker process than they actually advertise on the website. It says about a week for a turnaround time for the FBI to return the results, but I'm pretty sure you usually get it back within 3 days. I will also add that the background check requires a TB test as well, which is an additional layer. So that you would add some buffer time for that as well.
Okay. And again, to the point of if we're doing all of this virtual, especially a TB test, not sure if that may not be necessary, and also maybe hard for some of us to get out there to get that test. So if you could just follow up with that, we can share that with everyone. Question that came up in the chat about background checks to David Markey. Can the cost of a background check be included in the grant request? Yes, thumbs up. Okay, that's good to know. So keep that in mind since this is new for many of us working in the space right now. Does the background check also include fingerprints?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't know how they're doing virtual fingerprints, but they're supposedly doing that virtually. this
Here,
summer.
can you guys see my thumb? I'm putting it in my camera. Okay. Yeah. So
Right.
but seriously,
I
how,
was going to say that's been a huge problem for us. So when you're thinking about wait time, to James's point, because of the fingerprints and how the heck do you do them virtually, we're finding at our school with new teachers, it's actually taking longer. So I would recommend artists give it more time and look into that, because without the fingerprints, I don't know, is the FBI, does DCPS use FBI background checks like we do?
Yes.
Yes, I would just have artists look into that sooner than later.
Always good to plan ahead for it, sure.
And we'll send the information that we find from their team regarding the virtual. I know they were exploring that option, how they would complete virtual background checks, but we'll send that along once we have greater insight on that.
Yeah, thanks. That'll be super helpful. So then we can all assess what is actually needed, meaning will that TB test be required? You know, how do we move forward? And then appointments, making appointments for scheduling, fingerprinting and such, and how that works. Since this may be, again, new for everyone, and also for those of us, even if it's not new for you, it's going to be a new setup given the pandemic, right? Excuse me.
I'd love to call out that Karen mentioned the paper book that I showed a picture of. Karen Brown said that that's one of her residency works. So it's really great. I didn't realize that, Karen, but that's wonderful.
That's really sweet.
May I add something?
Sure.
This is Karen. It was done after I was there. So Joanna Jensen's the art teacher. We love this process, and she continues to do techniques that I bring for years after. So I don't know what year, maybe it was this year, but I wasn't there. So I'm excited about the ripple effect. That was my point in the chat. Thank you.
Yeah.
I see we continue to have more questions around the background checks, you know, just confirming if it's a static performance, why would you need the check? So there are clearly a lot of questions that we'll have as we navigate this together in moving forward, and knowing that there are different types of presentations that will be occurring virtually, some that are pre-recorded or not. So, okay, and James just said, yes, you can walk in for a background check. Again, this session is recorded, which means the chat is also recorded, but we will also make sure to follow up with everyone to get more information together for you guys. Also, just wanted to share, as I'd mentioned, the Arts and Humanities for Every Student program office, known as Office. Our first lottery applications will be rolling out on Thursday, and we are collecting information to be able to host virtual field trips. We've been beta testing trips with some of you already, including National Museum for Women in the Arts, Washington Bach Consort, Pulitzer Center, and others. And the DC Collaborative will be able to help facilitate this moving forward in a virtual lottery model that will also help support placement opportunities. Now, that said, in consort with that, there is also a sign up that Mary and her team will make sure to add that link again in here for everyone to see, that you can sign up directly to partner on specific grade bands and arcs. And one of the questions that was in here, Mary, was, if an organization has already taken a particular category, can another organization also participate?
Yes, definitely. It might help, I guess, for if the organizations put maybe a little more specific, if it's like a technique or is it about theme, that would probably help the other partners to know what they're adding. But we, of course, are going to view everything before we post it and make sure everything connects. It could even be that we might reach out to you and say, Partner A created something that we think would be the first half of the video that would work. Partner B has a second half. Would you mind if we edit them together? Or we will just offer them all separately on there, provided that they all fit nicely within the units. As I mentioned, it's meant to be a toolbox for the teachers. And it could even be that it's the same thing, but one teacher likes it done in format of Partner A and the other likes it done in format of Partner B. So it could even be of the same theme, but just different options. So yes, please, the more the merrier. We obviously need a lot of support with over 200 units of curriculum that we're offering. And we want to have all of it be chosen because it is full of a lot of options for the students.
Yeah. And to that end, when can an organization partner expect a follow-up if they've submitted something onto your Curriculum Connection partner spreadsheet?
Sure. So we are just really getting into that point. So we are just creating the exemplars for the teachers starting on June 24th. They are entering into a professional development on how to create these curricular connection companion units, and they will be uploading everything in. So we are creating the companion example this week, and we'll then be able to dive into what all has been listed by partners this week to know more of what that would look like. So starting this week into next week is when you'll hear from us, is the long answer.
This is David again. Sorry, I'm asking all the questions. Because our grant award announcements don't go out until the beginning of October, we're very aware that it does, they don't mesh very well with the academic year. Would you advise, particularly for organizations that are relying on having the funds in hand in order to, make a firm commitment and implement programming, would you advise those organizations to really look at the framework sort of for winter, spring, so they have adequate time, knowing that they've gotten the funding and that they can plan and work with specific schools and so on?
Sure, definitely. I mean, it can go through the school year. It doesn't have to, stop any of this work by August 31st. It's something that we can always add at a different point. If we know that we're going to work with you, if you have some preliminary idea that you're going to have this support, we can always offer it up that this is coming to the teacher so that they could plan to offer this later in the year once that video support or in-person support, virtual support is available.
Mm-hmm.
Great, thank you.
And that's also how the DC Collaborative can be helpful in the placement process of this as well, because we will still have a lottery program through our office program, and many of you have participated in that program. in the past. So we will be working in direct connection with Mary and DCPS Arts team on this. We'll also be working with, and we've reached out for forecast conversations also with ELA and social studies to connect to content as well. Those will be coming later. They're not quite ready yet. So yay to DCPS Arts. We're on schedule for planning, but know that we'll be helping to make those curricular connections with all the departments. And the lottery system for the collaborative, the schedule of the lottery will remain the same in terms of 3 increments through the school year. So you could be looking at a winter or spring offering, and we can help with facilitating placement as well.
And Lissa, again, it's David. I know we've been talking about grants, and most of our grants are organizational grants, but I am, for those of you who are familiar with Celebrate the Creative Spark, I am planning on launching that again this coming year. And in the past, they have been 3 lesson units or residencies, and they're open to individual teaching artists. So I would take Mary's advice and make sure you have all of your paperwork, and your background checks and so on in order before applying to that, because that'll be a great opportunity for individual artists. Last year we had 50 residencies across the city, and I would turn to Lissa and the team at the collaborative to help, make sure that they are pushed out in a fair way to everybody. So.
Yeah. Yes, because we still want to look at through that equitable lens and helping distribute the resources to those that need it. But we can also, help serve as that bridge in this process, and especially as it syncs up with our traditional lottery. We'll be ready to execute that, and we'll be sure in our application for office to include a check on asking for you to confirm that you've done your background check. We'll include the link to that information as well. I'm saying that out loud just as a reminder to everyone on background checks, but also to a reminder for us internally, since we're going to be rolling out the first application Thursday. So we'll make sure that that's in there too. Any other questions? I'm looking through chat here.
Roberta asked if we create if we create a performance piece or music video song with a written learning guide, can we submit to DCPS TV or YouTube platform? What if we cannot produce before August 31st? So just to the first part of the question, we are not, to our knowledge, we are not planning to use the DCPS TV and YouTube platform moving forward. That was an attempt to close the equity gap around digital access. That could change in the fall, that we would have that back, but the plan is not to use that everything will be hosted on Canvas, and ensuring that every child has access to a digital device of some sort.
No. Okay. Thanks, Mary, for sharing that. David, it looks like there's just a clarifying question around Creative Spark. Is it possible to move it earlier than spring for this year?
Good question. I guess I need an arts ed person here. So yes, there's Joanna. I see Joanna. She's like, yes, we will. Yeah, and it won't be any earlier than October because of the fiscal year. Right. But I can work on that. I have a clone of myself in a petri dish in my drawer.
Can you show me how to do that, please?
Yeah.
It's not looking great at the moment. I did my best. I should have studied more in science. Thank you so much, Mary and James. This has been so great and so informative for me. Thank you.
Thank you for hosting this so we can get lots of information out to everyone. And thank you everyone in advance for the supports that you're offering, and to everyone who's already signed up. Thank you. We really appreciate it. This is quite a mountain we're attempting to climb, and it's definitely going to take a village on this one.
Mm-hmm. Indeed, and thank you both. So everyone, we will follow up. And remember, there's a recording of this will be available, including the chat, and then all of the links for resources will be there. And so you can follow up with the DCPS Arts team or David Markey if you have questions. And a reminder that there is a workshop tomorrow at 10 a.m. David, I don't know if you can put that in the chat, the link to that, so folks.
I did, yeah.
Did you? Oh, sorry, it's already in there. Perfect. Okay, thank you. And then remember, tomorrow from 3 to 4. We will be hosting Council Member David Grosso to talk about the state of the DC Committee on Education and all of the budget hearings. It'll be an opportunity for you to hear from him, to ask him questions about funding and support for arts and humanities learning opportunities in the education budgets. You'll get to hear some of the other policies that he's moving forward. And then the DC Collaborative will be sharing with you something that we've already announced, but we'll be walking through our anti-racism action plan that also includes steps that we all as a community of practice will be expected to work on together as we move our work forward. And there will be future Connecting to Curriculum conversations coming up, including one with the out of school time office. Probably will also include libraries and parks and rec. And then another conversation like this coming up with our friends at the DC Public Charter Schools. So everyone just be on the lookout for very important information that'll be coming in your inbox from the DC Collaborative, because we'll have all of this information available. Please be sure to sign up. The last link that Tracy just shared is the Eventbrite for tomorrow's 3 to 4 p.m. conversation. It is the official DC Collaborative Spring Members Meeting. It will be virtual, so please join us, tune in. And again, thank you very much, David and Mary and James and the DCPS Arts team, and for all of you for joining us today. There was a lot of information. We'll continue to be sharing it and being in close contact with each other. So thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Congratulations again.